Hey, what's up, YouTube? It's your boy Barlow B Theorizing, and welcome back to the Barlow Zone, home of the one and only demon hunter King Kaido himself sent to Azeroth. How's everybody doing today? Man, I hope y'all excited. Like 11:59. Now, I do want to start off kind of and mention I do have a theory. I'm gonna wait till the end of the video because man, so much happened, right? Like there was so much that went down, and as always, I'm not going to be doing a chapter review, and I'm gonna kind of cut back from what I did last week, as you know, man, covering that many points. Kind of as I was rewatching it, I was thinking to myself, am I doing a chapter review and just calling it a reaction? And I didn't like that. You know, there's already a lot of review channels on YouTube, as I've said before, and you know, I'll keep reiterating it, mostly to make sure I'm reminding myself. But I'm not trying to step on their toes, you know. So I am gonna cut back. I had a few points I wanted to talk about. I'm gonna just try to stick to some of the things that I actually found interesting, not like the what was it? The does Rocks have a twin brother bit that I did last week? Well, you know, it's kind of cool and it's food for thought. It, as I mentioned, wasn't something that is likely to pan out, mean anything at the end of the day. So let's go ahead and hop into this one because, man, I was wrong. And, you know, I like presenting my theories, but I also like to try and be real about it, right? So I do admit I was wrong. I really didn't want to believe that Ochoko was going to turn out to be the traitor because it felt too easy. But man, sometimes the easy one just hits you perfectly, right? Like I did this panel with Ochoko counting up that money, got the little snot dribbling, big old smile, like dude's like, heck yeah, I just made bank. Right alongside the panel of Gloriosa just absolutely losing it. The duality of that paneling, it hit me, right? Like it's like, okay, you know what? Yeah, we went with the easy option, but it's because it was impactful in so many different areas. And the fallout of the decision that was made was much bigger than just, okay, yeah, you know what? I'm gonna take the easy route to explain this. And I really like that. Like that was really cool. We do kind of get confirmation again later because there's nothing that outright states Ochoko was the traitor. No, they straight up say in the chapter that nobody had any clue of what happened, right? But Oda does double down later on in the chapter. We get another panel when they were talking about Shaki, where Ochoko's all, "Hey, you know, guys, do should we really believe this? Like, it almost feels like a trap. Like maybe we just chill." He probably had an idea. The people he was working with, I don't know. I personally, I guess, find it difficult to believe that Ochoko was working with or for somebody connected to Garling and didn't have at least an idea of what was going to happen to Shaki. So I personally took that second panel as the hard confirmation that it was Ochoko that sold him out, right? And I also found it kind of interesting that Stussy in the very next panel was also kind of mentioning the possibility of it being a trap, right? And the only reason I really found that part interesting is because, you know, Stussy's worked with people who've been connected with the world government, right? Like after the Rocks Pirates, she went on to kind of be a contractor of sorts for Mads, Vegapunk, Caesar, Judge, and Queen, right? So she's worked with people who have worked with the world government before. It's just really curious to me, I guess, that second panel that was kind of like the confirmation that it was Ochoko that sold him outright is also immediately followed up by the other person from the Rocks crew that we know has ties to the world government also kind of saying something sketchy, you know? So it's like, was Ochoko working alone, or did Stussy also see a way out and was like, okay, no, you know what? I'm not going to play a direct part in it, but I'm also not going to tell anybody because this is guaranteed to tear this crew apart, and I need a way out. So I'm not saying Stussy was part of it. I'm not saying she played any direct role in Shaggy getting captured or Don Marlin being killed. But I wouldn't be surprised if she had caught wind, kind of knew something was going up, and just decided not to get involved because she wanted out. Now, moving along, quick little note. I thought it was kind of cool to get this panel where it's kind of confirmation that, Rayleigh was in love. Like, he was just as much at the will of Shaggy, but had the willpower, right? And it kind of got me thinking, did Rayleigh try to suppress his feelings out of respect for his captain, right? Because Gabon, Rayleigh, and Rogers, they have this weird dynamic where, like, Roger is the captain, but he personally respects Rayleigh and Gabon to the point where they're, to him at least, kind of on the same level. I've said it before and I'll say it again, they're more partners than subordinates, right? So, I just kind of caught myself thinking, did Rayleigh suppress his feelings for Shaggy because he knew Rogers was into her? But it was just something I caught myself thinking, was Rayleigh's choice not to pursue Shaggy out of respect for Roger? I'd love to hear what you guys think about that one. I do want to mention, because there was this really weird narrator panel. I don't know, perhaps it's just the site that I use to read the scanlations, but I just wanted to take a moment to kind of remind anybody who is reading the scanlations, the fan translations, right? We are going to be prone to some mistranslation in the chapters when we get them, right? And this narrator panel is the perfect example, because it's talking about 1 year after that event, but then cuts immediately to still Baby Shanks and all that from a year before. So it just kind of, if you read the scanlations, just keep in the back of your mind, you also need to personally be aware of some of the continuity, because mistranslations happen. But I don't want to spend too much time on that. I do want to point out that it was interesting that we got another reference to God Valley kind of knowing or being familiar with the world government, right? At least in the sense of they're aware of the existence of the world government. Yeah, I know, about a year before this, 2 years before this, Garling would have stopped in, kind of been the introduction point. But this chapter shows us that the world government was a figure that the residents of God Valley thought was an above the board ocean policing force, right? When the first government ships started to show up on the horizon, the residents were all, oh, hey, is that the world government? There's got to be a criminal on the island, right? Like, that's the only reason the world government would come to our non-affiliated island. Turns out there are other reasons, and this one isn't gonna end so well for y'all. But I found it really interesting that the world government, even on God Valley, with what we later find out is the home of the people who we've been led to believe are convincingly opposed to the world government, right? Like the Davy family. That kind of goes into the whole Willa D thing. Like, are we still going to say that the D is Davy, or are we saying dude's name was Davy Jones? I could be. Could be. I don't buy it, but then again, I never bought it. I'd never even personally entertained the idea that the middle initial D was for Davy. I don't know. I'm not even convinced that the middle initial is actually an initial, personally. But I don't want to spend too much time on that, because it was kind of just a curious little thought I had. I do want to talk about this panel though, because what Zebek is doing is, I don't want to call it galaxy brain because he does end up losing and we know that, but dude was trying to big brain it, right? And I think more importantly, what this panel, and I am gonna throw the panel up here a few times. I'm gonna directly quote it here in a moment, but what this panel kind of tells us is Rox wasn't a bad guy. Like Zebek, he was a pirate doing piratey things, sure, right? And I'll make the same argument for him that I've made for his son. Like they're being pirates because that's what they are. I mean, sure, Rox fought with Roger, right? Sure, he fought with Garp, and Luffy's fought with Kobe and Teach, but nothing that Zebek or Teach do is really with the sole purpose of griefing the main character, right? Like they're just doing their thing. They're out here trying to accomplish their own goal. And I think it's really interesting how Rox puts it. Now I'm going to be looking at the screen for just a second because I want to quote the full thing. But Rox, when he's sitting down with Zebek, says, and to point out that he does appear to be using different vocal ranges, right? So what he says was, they made a big mistake taking Shaki from us. This part is in bold, seeming to indicate he's saying it loudly so people can hear. And then the next part is not in bold. And what he says was, if my wife and son can just escape. And that part's quietly. Like that part seems like it was in a hushed tone just so Harold can hear that part, right? And then follows up immediately again in bold, kind of indicating that it's for everybody to hear. That's enough for me. Now, why the reason I really, God, dude, like Oda sculpted a magnificent panel here, right? Just a beautiful scene to me, because not only does it continue to build on the fact that Harold was a man that Zebek respected. Like, sure, they had that fight on Elbaf in the last chapter, right? They said our friendship's over. Harold, we were never friends. Bro, you can lie to yourself, but you was drinking with the homie. He was big chilling. Y'all were chopping it up and laughing. Y'all were friends. Deny it all you want, Harold. You and Zebek were friends. It just, he threw it away. But like this shows Zebek never lost his respect for Harold, right? He kind of started, it seems, to think of Harold as a man with a vision who lost his direction almost, right? But if we take what Zebek says in bold, the stuff that kind of seems to be said in a way that people in the vicinity might be able to hear it, right? What he says that is heard is, they made a big mistake taking Shaki from us. That's enough for me. Which, like, dude, that line itself is wild, because it seems like he's like, nah, they took one of us from my island. I don't care where they are. I don't care who's guarding them. They did enough to bring the wrath of the Rox pirates down on their head, right? And it kind of shows why the world thought Zebek was a bad dude. Like, it might not just be world government propaganda that we've been subject to up till this point, right? Like, we might be, or might have been, hearing the genuine thoughts of people who talked about Rox, unobscured or unaffected by the propaganda of the world government. Now, we for sure have gotten some of that, but I don't call into question the people who have questioned Rox, right? I just see it as Rox went out of his way to make it seem like he was a bad guy, even though it really doesn't feel like he was. Because the part that really hit, that was only for Harold's ears, that was Zebek being honest and more open than he's ever been, was if my wife and son can just escape. That's all he cared about. That was the part where the reference to "that's enough for me" came from, right? He didn't care about anybody else on God Valley. He didn't care about Shacky. He didn't care about the slaves. He didn't care about any of the kids or any of the civilians or any of the pirates or any of the Marines. The only reason Zebek was going to God Valley was to save his wife and son. That was all he cared about. And he told Harold. I gotta be honest, at this point, guys, I'm off the giant bandwagon. I know Dorian Broggie had done an amazing job. I know I'm trying to hold out hope that Hajrun's gonna pull his giant head out of his even gianter booty hole. But man, I'm kind of I don't know, like maybe I'm hanging on, like barely. I got two white knuckles on the back of that bandwagon at best at this point, man. But dude, Harold's been presented with an individual that if he teamed up with Harold and Roxy Zebek, Davy D. Zebek, they might have actually been able to accomplish what Luffy is going to accomplish by the end of the story. And I get it, they're not the main characters. There had to be a stumble to make sure they didn't reach the finish line that is intended for Luffy to reach. But man, the way it was written, I'm just, how smart could the Giants possibly be, right? Like, I've said it before, and I'm gonna keep griping on it until Hajrun gets painted in a better light, dude. But he has no legitimate reason to fear, hate, be scared of, see Loki as a monster. Like, he has no reason for any of this. This flashback has been showing us that, maybe not all of the time, but they did spend a fair portion of their childhood together. Hajrun had Ida, who was constantly talking about, hey, little homie, that's your brother. He needs you. His mom's gone. His dad's constantly gone. Like, you're the only family this kid has. Like, to the point where Ida's all, hey, Loki, you know what? It's got to be lonely up in that castle. I ain't trying to come up there, but how about if you ever get lonely, you come down here to the bar. You just come and kick it with me and Hajrun. Hajrun has no reason. Like, none at all, dude. He has chosen to buy into the fear-mongering that Elbaf has done against Loki. And man, him and his dad, like, man, dude, maybe it's just how good of a writer Oda is, right? Like, two characters introduced in an arc that, from what I can gather, wasn't ever actually planned by Oda. Like, he constantly made the references to Elbaf, right? But from what I've been able to gather, and I've got no confirmation on this, but Elbaf wasn't actually an intended stop for Luffy and the crew. So, in the fact that he's got me questioning the entirety of giant civilization at this point, has got me, like I said, kind of white knuckling, holding onto the back of that bandwagon, because there's got to be for a reason, right? Like, there's got to be some big payoff with Loki and Hajrun, or after we save Dorian Broggie. Like, there's got to be some big payoff to the sheer idiocy that the Giants of Elbaf have displayed up until this point. That pays it all off, right? Where one of the leaders finally comes in like, nah, you know what? It's time to change, and it's time to actually be smart, not just play at being smart, right? So, oh man, I'm sorry. I kind of went a little farther than I intended to on that tangent. Let's go ahead and move on because I have seen a lot of people questioning the price chests, right? Like in the past, I believe we've gotten two different references to the prize chests on God Valley, and both of those times we were presented with six pillars holding up six chests. And now in this chapter, it's nine pillars and nine chests. I get why people would be kind of looking at this like, hey, you Oda's being inconsistent, but time out for a minute because this is very easily explained, y'all. Every time we've gotten a reference to the prize chests of God Valley has been at some point before the tournament started. Right now, we are at the beginning of the tournament. Like the stuff is popping off, announcers are announcing everything, getting ready to fire the gun, get everything started. It is not only plausible, but entirely possible that these other three chests were always part of or intended to be part of the prize pool, but they just hadn't managed to get their hands on them yet. But they finally acquired them and got them to God Valley just in time because, hey, a top 7, I mean, what is it? Outside Extra and Outside Xbox, they love doing top 7, right? But it's an anomaly. It's not how things usually are. It's either a top 5 or a top 10. And now we have a top 10. You got Shaggy as the grand prize, and you got 9 treasure chests filled with unknown loot to round out 2 through 10. That just fits so much better than out of 7 or even out of 6 before we knew Shaggy was part of it. I think sometimes we as a community, and God, honestly, more so myself than anybody else I've interacted with in the community, but sometimes we see these little things and we go too wild. It's not a plot hole. It's not an inconsistency. It's not a retcon. We've never seen this image at the precipice of the tournament starting, right when everything was ready to go. So, and that's just how I see it, I guess. I'm not going to talk smack about anybody who chooses to see it the other way because I would really like to transition to the dragon stuff before this gets to a half an hour video. I am going to still try to keep it under 35 for us because I got a lot of dragon. Actually, no, that's right. I don't have a lot of talking about dragon planned for this video. He is the focal point of my theory. But I am sitting on most of my thoughts about dragon because, man, y'all have seen my recent videos. I've been waiting, I've been dying, I've been fiending, I've been chomping at the bit. Like Oda's been teasing too long. I've been waiting for some more dragon lore. So I think I really do want to do just an entire video about dragon. That'll probably be the next one. But I do want to mention a couple thoughts because what is it? The paneling, the images we get to see of dragon, right? He does not look like a man who wants to be here. Like he is very much just going through the motions, right? Like, oh, my dad's a great Marine. Everybody's gonna expect me to do the same thing. I guess I better get on board and try and see if this is something I can do. It's kind of the family job, right? But he does already appear to be questioning orders, and it doesn't appear to be something new for this appearance. As the sub-commanding officer that was yelled at indicated, hey, I apologize, please forgive him. Dragon was raised without discipline. Like, okay, so that means Dragon is almost certainly the reason that Garp raised Luffy the way he did. Like, your first pass, you decided to do the love and tenderness thing, and it ended up raising somebody who constantly questioned authority. And God, man, I connect with Dragon. I resonate with this man on so many levels, right? Yeah, I'm definitely going to be doing a dragon video next. So I also want to point out that Ivankov appears to have always been not only boisterous and loud and in your face, right? But even as a child, he had this mentality that would go on to define the Revolutionary Army, right? Where miracles don't happen by accident. If you're not willing to fight for yourself, then why would I fight for you? There's somebody else in the story that kind of has that same mentality now, isn't it? Confirmation Ivankov is Luffy's mom? Nah, not maybe. There's a chance, but nah, I'm pulling your guys' coattails on that one. I just wanted to kind of point out that Luffy has had this same mentality long before he ever met any of these people, right? Like all the way back to the East Blue, that mentality was there. Luffy was willing to fight for people. Luffy was willing to save people. Just not people who didn't want to save themselves. Even with Nami, right? Like on Arlong Park, even with Nami, it was Luffy was resigned to and content to lose Nami if it came down to it, because turns out she might not be fit for my crew if she doesn't want to fight for herself. It wasn't until she broke down, like, Luffy, you're the only person that can help me. I really need your help, fam. Like, I can't do this alone. And that was the moment. Hat on the head. Sit back, fam. You will be okay. And that Natsu from episode 1 of Fairy Tail feeling again, right? Like, when it happened, you're all, nah, you know what? Homeboy ain't lying. If I follow this man, it will be okay. I'm sorry if y'all can hear that. My tummy rumbling. I haven't had breakfast yet. We're going to go ahead and transition to my favorite part of making videos, and that's theory time. You know, Barlow be theorizing, and I got a doozy off of this one. So I will be honest, I was expecting something else, but I'm going to say it's going to happen in the next chapter. So let's go ahead and get rolling on it. In the next chapter, in chapter 1160, you know what? I didn't even stop to think about looking up what the importance of any of those numbers might be. That's crazy. I'm going to have to look into this after the video. But in 1160, the Kuja pirates will make their appearance. Now, why do I think the Kuja pirates are going to make their appearances? They're needed. They're kind of necessary. So not only do we need an event to kind of be the meeting point for Tritoma and Dragon, right? Because a lot of us are still, you know, kind of on this ideal wagon that Tritoma is Luffy's mom. So we need a way for Dragon and Tritoma to meet organically, right? Not like force a meeting on Amazon Lily or force a battle somewhere between the RA and the Kuja pirates, right? But like Shaki's here. Shaki is the grand prize of this human hunting game. It's been announced to the world, so it's not like the Kuja pirates don't know about it. When they dropped off Shaki on Hachinosu, like, it appeared that they still revered her and had respect for Shaki. Gloriosa is going to be there. You know, maybe the Kuja pirates don't know that. You got to believe that, you know, okay, you know what? We dropped off one of our empresses on an island where another of our empresses is kind of protecting. So we, you know, maybe feel kind of safe that Gloriosa will be able to help Shaki. But, you know, there's no guarantee. Shaki's in danger, somebody the Kuja pirates respected. It makes sense that the Kuja pirates would show up. Now, aside from the Kuja pirates showing up, we also had this panel near the end where Shamrock Shanks' mom was begging Dragon to save her sons. Like, don't let that bastard get his hands on him. Wow, like, I get it. Like, if I was stabbed in the gut by somebody I loved, I'd probably do an instant 182, like, not F that person. But like, damn, dude, like just earlier in the chapter, she was trying to convince Garling to come and live with her and the boys, right? Like she was in love with this man. And then, like I said, I get it. If I was stabbed by somebody I love, I'd flip the script too. Asking a random somebody she doesn't even know, has no indication of the kind of character they are. She got lucky because my theory pertaining to Dragon is that he is going to, because it didn't appear like the stroller was still here, right? It didn't look like the boys were still with their mother. So Garling did something with them. Dragon's got to go out and find them. In the process of that, I do believe he finds them probably in the vicinity of Garling, which, as Dragon tries to take the boys, and assumedly he's only going to get his hands on one, and I am assuming that one is going to be Shanks. Garling's going to have no choice to make a break for, not Garling, Dragon's going to have no choice to make a break for it because, yeah, we kind of know that he's strong now, but dude's just a recruit. Like, do you really think he thinks he can take on a God's Knight? Like, no, dude is getting out of Dodge as soon as he's eyeballed by Garling. He managed to save one of them. That'll be the silver lining he holds on to. Now, during this escape, because Garling's a strong dude, it's probably not going to be difficult for him to keep up with Dragon. During this escape, he'll run into Kuma, Ivankov, and Ginny, right? Now, the four of them, now, I understand Ivankov and Kuma don't have their devil fruits yet, but they all have incredible will. The four of them may be able to put up just enough of a fight to allow Dragon time to hide Shanks in that treasure chest, right? And then once Garling realizes, like, oh, hey, that little Navy recruit's back, but he ain't got the boy, I guess I got to go somewhere else to find my son. And he'll bounce, probably like, hey, I got a trader over here with some slaves, somebody come take care of this, I got more important things to do, type business. Ultimately giving Dragon and the future core of the Revolutionary Army time to escape, time to maybe run into Rogers like, hey, there's a treasure chest I need you to go pick up, homie. I don't have the means to get out of here. Because that's another thing we have to realize, right? Once Dragon turns traitor, he's got no more way off the island. So even if he wanted to protect Shanks, he doesn't have the confidence of knowing, okay, I'm going to be able to get off this island, I'll be able to keep this child safe. No, you roll up like, hey, isn't that Gold D. Roger? He like one of the strongest pirates on the sea right now, right? Hey, hold on, Kuma, Eva, we need to go holler at this dude real quick. They get over there like, hey, Roger, the treasure chests are over here. Make sure you grab this one specific one. It's got a powerful treasure in it. It's called Shanks. Whatever the story may be, but that would introduce the explanation for why Rogers knew Shanks' name, which is kind of a plot hole now that we know Shanks' mom gave Shanks the name Shanks. And I've just said Shanks so many times and now holds no meaning to me, so hopefully by the next video it will. But long story short, the reason I believe this theory is the way we're going is this is kind of the last big event that could stand as a catalyst for Dragon deciding to leave the Marines and form the RA. We know that by the time of Ohara, it's already beginning to form, as indicated during his conversation with Vegapunk. But also, if this theory tracks, right? If this theory is at least close to how things play out, it also explains Garp refusal to accept Dragon as his son, right? Like, you bring your son into the Marines because you're a strong Marine. They assume your son's going to be a strong Marine too. You play by the rules, and then your son Like, honestly, if this plays out, Garp would probably take it as a personal betrayal, right? It might not even be to the point where the Marines have to go to Garp like, hey, did you know about this? Like, no, I had no idea what my son was thinking. Like, all right, prove it. Say, renounce your connection to this man. He is no longer your son. And Garp's like, yeah, fucking bet. Like, F that little bastard for betraying me like that. I don't think that's how it'll play out. I think it is going to be the Marines forcing Garp to take that stance against his son. Because as I've indicated in a prior video, it does appear like Garp has his own plan that he feels needs to be activated from within the Marines. And that might even be why he wanted Dragon to come up in the Marines so bad. Why he wanted Luffy to come up in the Marines so bad, right? He forgot the step where he told his family, like, hey, there's a plan, play by the rules and trust me, son. He forgot that step, and that seems like a pretty important step. So, you know, this one's kind of gone on, looking at a little over 36 minutes right now. To anybody who's stayed, I appreciate y'all. I would love to hear what you guys think in the comments down below. And as always, you can check me out on my socials on X and Tumblr at BarlowBeTheorizing. I will make sure to leave a link to that Discord community, the Barlow Zone, in the description below. Feel free to come holler at me if you feel like a YouTube comment isn't quite enough to get your point across. And as always, much love, friends.